20 hostages and more Palestinian prisoners to be released over the next 2 days as the truce between Hamas and Israel is extended. NATO says Ukraine will join the military alliance after its war with Russia.
UAE accused of trying to use climate meetings in Dubai to promote deals for its own national oil and gas companies.
Israeli hostages released during a fourth night of a temporary truce. Several were taken in helicopters directly to hospitals in Tel Aviv. In all, 11 dual nationals of France, Germany and Argentina were freed on Monday evening. They included 3-year-old twins. Hamas has committed to releasing another 20 women and children as the 4-day ceasefire is extended for another 2 days. Hopes that the truce might turn into something more permanent seem unrealistic, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisting the war is not over. In exchange for the Israeli hostages, 33 Palestinians were freed from Israeli jails after midnight local time. Most of them were women and children. The Hamas-affiliated Quds News network posted footage showing Palestinians in the West Bank cheering and clapping as a bus carrying freed prisoners drove through a street. Further lorry loads of humanitarian supplies entered the Gaza Strip on Monday, with food, fuel and medicines being distributed by aid organizations. But aid workers say it's a drop in the ocean and hundreds more loaded trucks are needed. And the destruction of water wells is causing a major crisis in the Gaza Strip. 50% of them are unusable and nowhere near enough water is being brought into the area. 1,200 people in Israel died in Hamas's attack on the 7th of October and about 240 others were taken hostage. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says that since then, more than 14,500 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's retaliatory campaign. Ukraine will become a member of NATO, subject to reforms after its war with Russia. That was the promise made by the military alliance's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, who went on to give an update on Ukraine's counter-offensive.
Yes, the front line has not moved so much, and of course we would like them to liberate as much territory as possible, as quickly as possible. But even though the front line has not moved, the Ukrainians have been able to inflict heavy losses on the Russian invaders.
The city of Avdiivka in the eastern Donetsk region has become a symbol of the grinding war in which neither Ukraine nor Russia has made a decisive breakthrough in more than a year. Only around 1,300 people still live in the former coal hub, compared to 30,000 before the war. Meanwhile, in Kyiv, President Volodymyr Zelensky slammed Russia for causing massive navigational problems by blocking Ukrainian ports used to export grain. He was speaking at a meeting of the International Maritime Organization.
The food export from Ukraine affects the lives of about 400 million people in different parts of the world, in Africa and Asia, the poorest nations, and those whose social life is stable, but unfortunately at any moment can be hit by chaos due to the food shortage on people's tables.
Meanwhile, extreme weather is hampering food transportation in the region. It's already caused the deaths of 8 people in Russian-annexed Crimea and other parts of Ukraine and Moldavia.
The president of the upcoming COP28 conference in Dubai, Sultan Al Jaber, is at the center of allegations suggesting the United Arab Emirates had planned to use climate meetings with other countries to promote deals for its own national oil and gas companies. Sultan Al Jaber is controversially also CEO of the UAE state oil giant ADNOC. And according to leaked documents, his team was preparing for meetings with at least 27 foreign governments ahead of the COP28 summit, which starts on November 30th. The documents included proposed talking points, such as one for China, which says ADNOC is willing to jointly evaluate international liquefied natural gas opportunities in Mozambique, Canada and Australia. Former Irish President Mary Robinson, who is a prominent figure due to attend COP28, has concerns over such apparent private deals on the sidelines of the conference.
It's very worrying because perceptions matter, and there was already a perception that the presidency was a bit compromised, and this may make the situation even more difficult. We have no time for a bad COP. We have to have as much progress at this COP as possible because we're running out of time.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres has stressed the urgency and the need for nothing to undermine the climate conference.
Leaders must act to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees, protect people from climate chaos, and end the fossil fuel age.
Dubai's COP team has rejected any implication of a conflict of interest, and that Sultan Al Jaber is singularly focused on the business of COP and delivering ambitious and transformational climate outcomes.
A diplomatic spat has evolved between Israel and 3 countries in the European Union, Ireland, Spain and Belgium. The ambassadors for the 3 countries have been called in for diplomatic castigation in Tel Aviv. Belgian and Spanish prime ministers called on Israel to end the suffering of Palestinians during a recent visit to the Rafah border. Spain's Pedro Sanchez described the attacks on civilians in Gaza as unbearable and unacceptable and said the EU should recognise a Palestinian state. The two also reiterated Israel's right to defend itself and called for Hamas to release all hostages. Meanwhile, the Israeli foreign minister responded by saying, "We condemn the false claims of prime ministers of Belgium and Spain which support terrorism." Meanwhile, the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar used a quote from the song Amazing Grace in welcoming the release of Irish-Israeli girl Emily Hand, who was taken hostage by Hamas. The Israeli president said the quote was unacceptable as it described her being lost and not kidnapped, although the Prime Minister did reiterate she had been kidnapped further in his statement. Irish MEP Billy Kelleher says he's disappointed with the reaction in Israel.
We now have the Israeli government and the Israeli diplomatic service, undermining people who just challenge Israel on the basics of complying with international law, on the basics of allowing humanitarian aid in and out of Gaza, on the basics of allowing medicines, water and just electricity, and the basics of necessity to flow in across the Rafah crossing into Gaza. So, being honest, I'm very disappointed with the diplomatic effort to undermine countries that have always been acting in good faith around the issue of the two-state solution and the need for there to be a permanent settlement and a peace process in the Middle East itself.
In the meantime, the EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell has been calling for prolonging the truce in Gaza. While an extra 2 days pause in hostilities has been agreed, Borrell indicated he would like for the fighting to stop. He was speaking at the Mediterranean Forum, attended by Middle Eastern countries. Israel declined to attend this year.
Hemos tenido una pausa en los combates que tiene que extenderse hasta llegar a hacer posible una solución política que permita romper el ciclo de la violencia.
Israel has vowed to continue its war, saying it won't stop until Hamas is defeated. However, Israeli government sources have told Euronews the US is putting pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to moderate its military offensive to limit civilian casualties. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
Władysław Grochowski and his wife Lena have been recognized by the UN for their work in providing safe accommodation for refugees. Their hotel network provides 500,000 free lodging places.
I już od razu 24 lutego przyjęliśmy pierwszych uchodźców w hotelu w Lublinie. Następnego dnia powstało 16 sztabów kryzysowych we wszystkich 16 hotelach. Przyjmowaliśmy wszystkich, którzy się zgłaszali. Jestem dumny, że poradziliśmy sobie, że w takich trudnych sytuacjach potrafimy się zachować.
To było 2 kwietnia, przekroczyliśmy granicę, tak? Przyjechaliśmy do Janowa, do hotelu. To była noc, 2 w nocy. Jak jedziesz całą rodziną z jedną walizką i nie wiesz, gdzie jedziesz, właśnie nie wiedzieliśmy, po prostu to był taki wyjazd i nie wiesz, gdzie w ogóle się będziesz nocować, tak? I tak przyjechaliśmy i stajali tam kucharze, tak sporo pracowników. I dostaliśmy takie ciepłe jedzenie. Weszli do pokoju, który udostępnili nam, tak? I pierwsze co było, sieli sobie tak na łóżko i nie wiedzieli, co w ogóle robić dalej. Nie wiedzieli, kompletnie nie wiedzieli, ale to jak ciepło, ile było tego wsparcia takiego dla obcych ludzi, bo to był w ogóle cały autobus przesiedleńców z różnych miast z Ukrainy. Nas nakarmili, dali pościel, wszystko dali, to było na tyle dla nas ważne.
Czuję się odpowiedzialny za tych ludzi, bo jeżeli ja mam więcej, to może na więcej mnie stać też. To wstyd by był, jeżeli bym się nie utożsamiał z potrzebami ludzi, którzy mają mniej.
The Drogohovsky family has been constantly supporting refugees for 2 years now. This is one reason the UNHCR has awarded them the Nansen Prize.
They have given not more than aid to refugees, they have empowered refugees by helping them to find jobs, to get trainings, to get socially included, alongside also other people in need. They also help Polish people in need. And secondly, they have mobilized the business community, they have worked with cities, they have worked with humanitarian organizations, so it's a whole of society approach which we see here and which benefits refugees.
The Grochowski family has been vocal about the situation of migrants on the Polish-Belarusian border and responded to it by, for example, offering accommodation to those people on the move as well. Magdalena Hodownik for Euronews from Warsaw.